Hey guys, Nick Espinoza, your chief security fanatic here. And today I want to talk about something that I think has a potential for long-term devastation in societies across the world, and that is Google Maps. And the reason why is that we just found out, and this is according to an article in MSN, and I actually did some confirmation of my own, that Google redraws the borders on its map depending on what country you're from. I think the long-term effects of this are pretty devastating, and I'm going to get to that in a moment. But here's what's going on, and here's the thrust of the MSN article, and I think it's a very, very good article to read. But for more than 70 years, the countries of India and Pakistan have waged a sporadic and deadly, basically de facto war over the control of a region known as Kashmir. Tens of thousands have died in this conflict. And before I move forward with this, I do have viewers, listeners, watchers, etc., and followers in both India and Pakistan, and I just want to say I am not taking sides in this conflict. I know this is a very heated debate. I know everybody has their position. I don't have a dog in this fight in that sense, so please, I am not trying to get political, but this really underscores the issue here that we are talking about. So basically, what ends up happening is because you've got these two sides claiming this region, again, not getting political, Google Maps is basically changing the borders if you live in India versus Pakistan. And so if you're living in India, you might think, well, we completely own this, the dispute's over, because you see Kashmir on a map in Google Maps in India as one continuous region. In Pakistan, you see the lines all marked up in the same way that we here in the United States and most of the world actually see it. That is very interesting, and I confirmed this with my own VPN. I connected my VPN to India, and I went and looked at Kashmir on a different browser, and then I disconnected my VPN and I went and looked at it here in the United States and in Pakistan as well, and they are noticeably different. I am going to link the picture from the MSN article that shows basically the outline of the two different borders as seen by Pakistan and India in the comments section in all my social media platforms if I am able to, and most of my platforms should allow me to do that. But here's the thing, Google has been known to bend to the will of governments all over the world on many different things. The most notable one that I can think of outside of this is censoring their search engine basically on behalf of the Chinese government. But people have noted changes in map borders throughout the world depending on where you live. So countries like Argentina, the United Kingdom, and Iran have all basically said our maps and borders, not just for our countries, but let's say regions that we have in dispute or who we think owns what, Google is basically just redrawing the maps. And online map makers appear to be happy to accommodate the worldviews of countries like this because it basically means they get to keep a presence there as well as a revenue stream. And that definitely affects Google because 80% of the market share for online maps is Google Maps. They have over 1 billion users, most of them mobile, and so the impact on people's perceptions of the world is basically Google's. They are literally adjudicating historical border wars, and I think that is something that we need to discuss. Now, from this MSN article, and I thought this was a great paragraph, I'd like to quote it directly, and I quote, "And while maps are meant to bring order to the world, the Silicon Valley firm's decision-making on maps is often shrouded in secrecy, even to some of those who work to shape its digital atlases every day. It is influenced not just by history and local news, but also the shifting whims of diplomats, policymakers, and its own executives," say people familiar with the matter who asked not to be identified because they weren't authorized to discuss internal processes. Now, like my video from the other day, I think this is a rock in a hard place situation for a company like Google and other smaller online map makers. If Google were to declare on its map that Kashmir was a disputed or contested zone, they risk angering both sides of this conflict, both India and Pakistan. But is that worse than delivering fake news to a population just to keep earning money there? For Google, that answer is yes. They would rather have the revenue stream and not anger the Indian government or the Pakistani government by basically not bending to their will in that sense. Now, for me personally, I worry about the long-term damage of this, especially to education, as we start to raise younger generations with possibly a mismatched perception of what the world is or what's really going on in specific regions. Now, I'm going to get off of Kashmir here, and we're going to put a fake scenario together, which I have been thinking about in my brain. Let's think about the United States and Canada. They are long-term allies. They've been very friendly with each other for years and all of that. We jokingly call down here in America, Canada is America's hat. You know, we love the Canadians and they seem to love us for some reason. Now, here's the thing. The most northeastern border in the United States and leading into Canada is the state of Maine. Assume for a moment that the United States and Canada both claimed that state as their own. Canada obviously calling it a province or a territory, the United States calling it a state. And basically, here we have this conflict. Now, if Google was on board with this, what children in Canada would see would be different than what kids in America, the United States, would see. And here's the thing. Most kids are using these as resources for education as well. As you learn, you get issued Chromebooks, stuff like this. You're going to Google Maps. You are being educated. And so now you've got kids in Canada for decades believing the map looks one way with its southern border in the United States, and the United States thinking, or the kids in the United States looking at the northern border of the United States and thinking that it's different than what Canada perceives. Now, fast forward 2-3 decades as these kids are learning and growing up, and they're starting to assume positions of power. They are now going to dive in and dig in even harder because their worldview growing up has basically been, well, Maine is Canada's or Maine is the United States. And here we are exacerbating that conflict, perpetuating that, because we have a third-party company sitting here dictating to the will of whatever government is there, saying, oh, well, clearly Maine is part of the United States or clearly Maine is part of Canada. Do you see the issue I've got here with this? And when we are looking at a hot zone, literally like Kashmir, and again, I'm not taking sides, you've got children in India and children in Pakistan learning different borders and being reinforced something that may not necessarily be true, thanks to a company that is sitting thousands of miles away in a foreign country here in Silicon Valley in the United States. That's something that we need to talk about, and I think the long-term ramifications of allowing that is difficult. It's problematic, I think, and potentially devastating. But the thing is, how do we fix this? Obviously, if Google were to write, Kashmir as a disputed zone in both Google Maps for India and for Pakistan, they risk potentially angering both governments. It would be probably the same between Canada and the United States and our fictitious Maine scenario. So how do we fix this? What do we do to ensure that we are being accurate to say that, India believes they own Kashmir, Pakistan believes they own Kashmir? What's that? How do we reconcile that on a map? And I think that's something that we really need to discuss, because as we educate future generations, we don't want them digging in on false premises, on false things, which exacerbates conflict and gets more people killed. My only fight my only side in a conflict like this is the one that has peaceful resolution and nobody gets harmed. So with that is your news of the day. I thought it was absolutely fascinating. I hope you guys did too. And here we are. And please like, share, follow me here on Facebook and Twitter at NickAESP. And please feel free to subscribe to me at YouTube as well. And as always, stay safe and stay online. Thanks, guys.